Right. When Sydney Cohen asked me to advise her senior speech, I knew exactly what to wear. You see, Sydney is the type of student who lives her life out loud. We have that in common, actually. It's not unusual for me to hear Mr. Brooksy or Queen Mr. Brooks call out to me from across the quad. And to be honest with you, I'm here for it. Sydney has the courage to be everything I dreamed of being in high school. An earnest, compassionate, high-achieving student who says what's on her mind and leads with her heart in everything that she does. Over the years, these qualities have led me to think that I know Sydney really well. Most of us in this auditorium probably think that we know Sydney well. We think we know Sydney, but maybe we don't fully know Sydney. Maya Angelou writes that we delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty. Sydney might be a generous spirit and a powerhouse academic, but most of us, including myself, have not witnessed everything it took to become the remarkable young woman who stands before us today. Behind the sparkles and the joy, Sydney has a rich, complex inner world. She is honest with herself and reflective. She's also one of the hardest working students I've ever met. She doesn't study for the A, but to understand the material to the best of her ability. She takes every bit of constructive feedback she receives and applies it across her life. Sydney is also one of the most generous students I've ever met. She's the kind of student who takes the time to know all of her classmates' names and who reaches out to them with gifts when they're feeling down. She reaches out to me in times of need and checks in to make sure that I know that she cares. The results of Sydney's introspection speak for themselves. Paris describes Sydney as the light of any room that she walks into. She is the most caring and giving person I've ever met. Being her best friend has truly been a privilege. Without fail, Sydney picks me up when I am down with her stunning and authentic rainbow unicorn sparkle personality. She gives me strength when I am weak, she supports me through it all, and she never fails to remind me of my worth. I truly don't know where I would be without Sydney. Paris continues that Sydney is rainbows and ice cream sundaes and intelligent and loving and brave and passionate and creative and selfless and resilient. You can't help but love her. Sydney is my light, or rather my disco ball in the dark. Henry writes that Sydney is someone you can guarantee will bring life into any place you find her in. She is as smart as she is compassionate, with a strong conviction in her passions. I am grateful to be able to spend time with someone as unique and amazing as Sydney. Ashton remarks that Sydney is one of the most loyal people I know. She is always there for you when you need her, and I am grateful to have a friend like her. Sammy agrees, noting that Sydney is the most caring person I know and my personal hype man. I'll just be having a conversation with someone and she'll come up and talk about how I'm the best person ever, making me feel very uncomfortable, but I know she just really cares about others. It's true. Catherine writes, I think Sydney has always been a unicorn. She is one of the most honest people I know, but she is also incredibly pure and cares so deeply about others. Oh, and the internet also says that unicorns are impossible to catch. So when I see Sydney prancing around campus while I scream her name while she completely ignores my shouts, I'll think of that unicorn. Sydney's sister Tabitha writes, I have always looked up to Sydney and her unwavering spirit. She never fails to make me laugh with her ridiculous obsessions and always knows how to make my days brighter and better each and every morning. She's the type of person you can always count on and will drop everything for the people she cares about. I am endlessly grateful to have her in my life as an older sister, role model, and friend. It is my honor and privilege to introduce the one, the only, the butterfly, the unicorn, Sydney Cohen.
I am enough. I tried to believe this phrase for years as I stared at my reflection in the mirror and obsessed over my appearance. However, these words never held truth in my own heart, and I constantly found ways to pick out my deep-seated insecurities and diminish my self-worth. It was only recently that I truly began to understand the importance of loving and accepting myself amidst a society filled with many unattainable standards. We exist in a world that places value on superficial beauty. a place where anything can be fixed or changed. Arms can be tightened, thighs can be lifted, and cellulite can be lasered away. Because that is what society tells us to do, which is to alter or change our appearance in order to be beautiful. These unrealistic standards are just social constructs that seep into our community and manifest themselves in different ways. From magazines and marketing, social media conditions us to believe that we have to have toned bodies, clear skin, and perfect features to fulfill the beauty standard. Unfortunately, most of us digest these messages through social media. However, these pressures land especially hard on teens. In a survey taken by the Wall Street Journal, 32% of teen girls said when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel significantly worse. These teens often felt addicted and knew what they were seeing was bad for their mental health, but felt unable to stop themselves. The article continues to note that social media is now similar to alcohol, a popular experience that blends short-term euphoria with long-term regret, a product that leads to painful and even addictive behavior among a majority of teens, including myself. For years, I was so guilty of consuming and latching on to these messages and allowing them to cloud my perception of beauty. Eventually, I had drunk the Kool-Aid to an extent where I had forgotten what it was like to live in a world without social media being my drug and the posts and influencers being my dealer of a false reality. For a lot of high school, I never felt worthy enough as a result of these factors. Self-crippling doubt washed over my body, and many days I felt as if I was treading water in a sea of my own insecurities. At the beginning of my freshman year, I could count off a list of things I hated about myself as quickly as I could tell you all what I had eaten for lunch that day. I hated the way my acne looked, so I reapplied my foundation 3 or 4 times, convinced that people wouldn't want to be friends with me because of the cystic bumps that covered my face. I hated the way my nose looked, so I went through nose job consultations and prefaced social interactions with deprecating comments such as, "I know my nose is hideous." And I hated the way my body looked, so I skipped meals and found myself stepping on the scale multiple times a day, fearing that a number defined who I was. As sophomore year rolled around, I tried to express myself through fashion in order to mask my insecurities. But I soon realized that my extravagant outfits no longer had the power to distract me from the introspection surrounding my self-criticism that I should have been doing. I tried to change how I viewed myself, but I always fell back into my old habits, comparing myself to others. This allowed my toxic cycle of hating myself and then trying to fix myself to continue, and I consistently failed to recognize how harmful my behavior was to my self-worth. It took a visit to my temple to change my thinking. About a year ago, my rabbi presented a sermon about beauty and external scars. He told the story of his best friend Shlomo, a man who had saved a woman's life late one night in Jerusalem. The woman was being attacked by a man, so Shlomo caught the man and let the woman get away safely. However, before Shlomo was able to get away, the man cut his face, leaving him with a massive scar that stretched across his left cheek. For the following few years, Shlomo tried to find a wife, but he was rejected over and over, and he knew it was because of his horrible scar. Then, one day, 5 years after the accident, he met a woman who wasn't turned off by the scar. In fact, she asked him a question that no one had asked him before. "Where did you get the scar on your left cheek from?" Shlomo told her the story of his accident, and it turned out that she was the woman he had saved years earlier. His scar, far from hiding his beauty, actually reflected it, the beauty of doing the right thing. And this scar ultimately brought him back to true love with this woman. After hearing this story, I was stunned, realizing that beauty is not defined by one's appearance, but instead is defined by someone's inner worth. This might sound cliche, and I agree, but before this moment, I was never able to fully internalize this truth. And how could I when I was being fed opposite messages by the media in my daily life? I was immediately inspired to reevaluate my priorities and redefine what I thought was beautiful in myself and in this world. I decided I needed to take active steps in order to shift my focus away from how I looked and back into how I made people feel. I began to spend less time on social media, and most importantly, I made a goal of trying to replace my self-criticism with positive self-talk. But I would be lying if I said I'm at a point where I am completely confident in my body, or if I told you all I have done my job of never falling back into these traps. But I now know that I don't have to have an hourglass figure, that my skin doesn't need to be clear, and that I don't need to have a perfect nose to be worthy of love. That my beauty does not depend on how I look, but instead depends on my strength, depends on my courage, and depends on what I do to inspire and be there for the people who have loved me, even when I didn't love myself. I am more than how I look. If there is one thing I hope you all take away from this speech, is that you are not alone if you have felt like this or are currently feeling like this. Although I am a single voice in a symphony of opinions, I want you all to know that none of you need to alter yourself or your appearance in order to fit society's narrow mold. Instead, it is my only hope that next time any of you look in the mirror, you can appreciate and be kind to the reflection of someone who brings so much hope, bravery, and positive change into our world, because those are the things that truly define beauty. I dream that we can celebrate each other and ourselves as we are, as we will be, and as we were meant to be. Unique, imperfect, beautiful, and so incredibly powerful. All of you are beyond worthy in this audience. Each of you is more than enough. I am enough. Thank you.